Blood Rites, the Orzhov vampire precon from the Lost Caverns of Ixalan, does just about what you'd expect it to do. Of course, there are loads of vampires. You're in the white and black colors, so you know you're looking at sacrifice payoffs. And due to the blood sucking vampires are so famous for, there are plenty of drain effects, including a sweet reprint, Exquisite Blood. This thing is sitting at about $20 at the very lowest I've seen, which gets you halfway to paying for the entire set of cards. The face commander is Clavileño, First of the Blessed, which gives a non-demon vampire a text line, letting you draw a card and create a 4/3 tapped flying vampire demon when the creature dies. Martyr of Dusk is a mopey 2-mana 2/1 common creature that creates another vampire when it dies. Let's say you attack me with it and give it that awesome text line from Clavileño. I'm just not going to risk having it die by putting a creature in front of it to block. That is where the sacrificing comes in. You get that free 2 points of damage, and when you're ready, cast and sacrifice the Martyr with Bartolome del Presidio to get your drawn card, a tapped 4/3 flying vampire demon, a 1/1 vampire with lifelink, and a +1/+1 counter on Bartolome. Next turn, you can attack with that newly minted 1/1 vampire to rinse and repeat the whole process. Only, I'm going to attempt to block it this time. Now, if a creature like Cordial Vampire is on the battlefield, the death of the Martyr will mean +1/+1 counters will be raining down on all of your creatures as well. What I want to do with the deck is get as many of those 4/3 flyers on the battlefield as I can, give all my vampires more power, introduce some new sacrifice options, and a new win condition. So let's get into the upgrade right after you subscribe to the channel. Take that 2-second plunge by pressing that button below, please and thank you. Alright, 10 cards for $10, starting with that new win condition. You know it, you love it, Sanguine Bond. If this enchantment makes its way onto the battlefield alongside Exquisite Blood, and you gain even 1 life, you win the game if the loop can't be stopped. Because you gained 1 life, a target enemy will now lose 1 life through Sanguine Bond. With your opponent losing that 1 life, you now gain 1 life with Exquisite Blood, which makes them lose 1 life with Sanguine Bond, which makes you gain 1 life with Exquisite Blood, and so the story goes. Sanguine Bond got reprinted in the wilds of Eldraine, so you can find that version for just over $1. I gotta show some love to the Lost Caverns of Ixalan, so I'm throwing in 2 cards from that set, starting with the 59-cent Preacher of the Schism. This creature cares about player life totals when you attack with him. You have the most life, you lose 1 life, but draw a card. You attack the player with the most life, and you create a tiny lifelinking vampire creature token. If you don't meet any of those conditions, it's still a death-touching 2/4 for 3 mana, so that ain't too shabby neither. Tarian's Journal is a 2-mana artifact that can tap for free to sacrifice another artifact or creature to draw you a card. There aren't many artifacts to sacrifice in the deck, but this can make sure the creatures blessed by Clavileño actually die so you can get your payoffs. Also, the drawn card. Delicious. In a break the glass in case of emergency situation, you can pay 2 and discard your hand to transform the journal into the Tomb of Aclazotz. This is a legendary land and a cave that taps for either 1 black mana, or to let you cast a creature spell from your graveyard with a finality counter on it. That means when the creature dies, it gets exiled. With card draw sitting in your command zone, you're likely to have cards in hand throughout the game, but there are absolutely lines where you want this transformed. You could be a couple damage short of lethal, but casting Patron of the Saint to remove a blocker and get those vampire counters will push the last bit of damage through. Satisfyingly, you can choose to refill your hand by resurrecting Champion of Dusk, so long as you've got some vampires in play. You can pick this one up for about 60 cents. Deadly Dispute is another way to sacrifice an artifact or creature, this time at instant speed. It costs 1 and a black, as well as that sacrificed artifact or creature. In return, you get 2 drawn cards and a treasure token. I haven't mentioned this yet, but one of the best reprints in the deck is the sorcery, New Blood, which gives you control of a target creature and makes it a vampire. It comes from a place of evil, I'm sure of it, but the enjoyment of stealing someone's commander and sacrificing it for value brings me a sense of joy unparalleled. This spell is just under $1.50. Plumb the Forbidden is another instant speed way to sacrifice creatures and is a premier response to a board wipe that's about to be resolved. For 1 and a black and a sacrificed creature, you will draw a card and lose a life. Then, for every additional creature you sacrifice, you copy the spell. Nothing will help you rebuild your board state like a fist full of cards. There is also the chance you have 3 or 4 creatures on the battlefield with Clevelenyo's Blessing, waiting for their demonic absolution. Plumb them out right before your turn for an army of flyers and more spells to back them up. Right now, you're looking at about $1.75 for this spell. We are on the instant train, so let's choo-choo along. Victim of Night is the most flavor-filled removal spell possible for this list. For 2 black, you can destroy any creature without the 3 listed creature types on the card. The art is a bloody mess, with Olivia Voldaren reveling in the tormented character's demise in the flavor text below. This is the kind of spell that really gets me into a deck themed like this, and it's not that bad of a rate for what it does. This spell is only a quarter. The last edition is from the previous set, Wilds of Eldraine, and is the 1 black mana not dead after all. As the name suggests, when the targeted creature dies, it won't stay that way for long. It will return to the battlefield, tapped with a Wicked roll on it. This can be used as a simple combat trick to trade off a pesky enemy blocker, get double the sacrifice value from a creature, get a second massive ETB effect, or save you from the very annoying commander tax. I like my cards to have some flexibility, and this one fits the bill. It's currently going for about $1.50. These 2 creatures are bringing some lord effects to the table, getting your vampires pumped up and ready to suck some blood. Edgar, Charmed Groom, has that +1/+1 pump, but also a transformed side when he dies. The artifact, Edgar Markov's Coffin, will net you a vampire on each of your upkeeps until it has 3 bloodline counters, where it will retransform into the creature. Markov Baron has the same +1/+1 effect, but has lifelink and can be convoked, possibly letting you cast the creature for free. I've said it before, but I'll always repeat it. I love free spells. Both of these creatures are just over $1 combined. Sorin, Solemn Visitor, will be the second Sorin in the deck, but I like Planeswalkers, so here we go. The lifelink from the +1 ability will make sure any creature you have on the battlefield can get that infinite enchantment loop going, but also buff up your flying vampire demons. And speaking of flying vampires, the -2 ability will get you another one. The -6 ability, if you can get there, will start chipping away at all your opponent's creatures with a game-lasting emblem, making them sacrifice one during their upkeep. There is a deck list in the description with all of these additions and some recommended cuts. I've talked about a couple of the best reprints in the deck, being Exquisite Blood and New Blood, but if you want to hang out a little bit longer, I'm going to highlight some of the other best reprints and best new spells printed for the Precon. Elenda, the Dusk Rose, an aristocratic commander staple, has been reprinted, and for those that don't know, is a massively powerful engine in her own right. In a deck where you are spamming creature tokens to sacrifice to get your drain on with creatures like Blood Artist and Cruel Celebrant, Elenda can get huge, and when she dies, keep that drain train going. Side note, Blood Artist and Cruel Celebrant are also in the Precon. Bloodghast is a sacrificing specialist's dream. It costs 2 black to get on the battlefield, but that landfall trigger is the reason this card is a banger. If Bloodghast is in your graveyard and a land enters the battlefield under your control, you can return the creature to the battlefield. Cast Bloodghast, then sacrifice it with the new creature, Master of Dark Rites, to get 3 black mana. Play a fetch land to bring it back, sacrifice it another way, go fetch another land, bring it back again to sacrifice at your leisure. Besides the draining value we talked about a moment ago, if you've got the Blade of the Blood Chief attached to a vampire, maybe one of your flying vampire demon tokens, that sequence just netted you 6 +1/+1 counters and a much quicker path to victory. Twilight Prophet can ascend to get the city's blessing if you control 10 or more permanents. When that happens, this creature turns into a drawn card each upkeep, but even more damage to each opponent and life gain for you equal to the revealed card's mana value. Pact of the Serpent is a great way to get some more cards in hand, so long as you have a board full of vampires. And not for nothing, the land Isolated Chapel is a pretty nice pickup to help out your mana base. There are 2 new cards besides the Master of Dark Rites that I want to touch on. The first is Elenda's Hierophant, which has an eerily similar effect to Elenda, the Dusk Rose. This time gaining counters whenever you gain life, creating those tokens equal to its power when it dies. Notably, this is a flyer, less mana value, and only in a single color, so you'll probably be seeing this in more and more of your games against life gain decks. Last but not least is the Charismatic Conqueror, which will put your opponents in a tough spot every time they play a creature or artifact. They can choose to have it come in untapped, but if they do, you create a 1/1 vampire creature token with lifelink. If you can play this turn 2, this will either slow down your opponent's ability to get their engines online, or have them accelerate your engine building process. That's a win on either side of the equation, and I'll take that every time. Thanks for tuning in. Please subscribe to the channel below, like the video, and let me know your top budget edition or your favorite flavor edition. I'll catch you next time for some more monkeying around.